When I was 8, I played Baldur's Gate for the first time, and it was the first time that I had really experienced an RPG. Growing up, I was surrounded by everything Dungeons & Dragons, as my dad had been a longtime fan since before he had joined the Navy. From massive books with fantastical cover art, to meticulously hand-painted miniatures, to monster manuals and various art pieces, sitting down with Baldur's Gate made everything that I would grow to love click into place. From sitting there and staring at the cover images of Elric of Melnit Bone, or Drizzt Do'Urden, or Elminster the Mage, Raistlin, and of course, the complete collection of the Wheel of Time books in both softcover and hardcover copies, to finally being able to experience one of those many, many worlds that littered our bookshelves. I wanted to learn every detail about every character in my travels, from Candlekeep to Baldur's Gate. I wanted to know what each ability score did down to their very fundamentals. I wanted to know which dice was used for every action, having my text bar at the bottom of my screen display each and every dice roll that happened behind the scenes so that I can later go back and see the battle unfold in dice rolls. Gone were the days of playing Donkey Kong and Tekken 2. Welcome to the rest of my life.
Well, it would appear that this is close to the end of our journey.
Go for the eyes, Boo! Go for the eyes! Rusk!
You dare to attack me? Do you think you should be?
So, it seems we have finally reached the end of your quest. What comes next could change you forever and dictate our future. It seems my promise to Gorion is at last at an end. It will be difficult to watch you move on to a higher state of being, if that is where you choose to go. But you hardly need my guidance any longer, so this is it. I wish you well. Maybe someday. Well, I doubt this is the last we've heard of you.
I fell in love with Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition AD&D Ruleset, and I had never touched another ruleset since, until Larian Studios took up the helm of the franchise and sent the 3rd rendition of Baldur's Gate into early access. This was my first time touching 5th edition rules, and the utter confusion I had when I couldn't stack all my spell buffs on my party, or the fact that the greatest system of all time was missing. 2-hit armor class is 0, THAC0 for short, which was the number you would have to roll to hit someone who was wearing full plate armor and a shield. Wait. I know. I get it. Everyone hated the confusing system. But hear me out. When you're deciding whether to fight an opponent or not, you would first size them up, right? Like, what are they wearing? You notice that he's in scale mail and a shield, and you have a THAC0 of 17. Well, that simple observation means that you would need to roll at least a 12 to hit him, pending his dexterity score, of course. You have a 2 in 5 chance to connect your blade to his health pool. Now, in the new system, the one that 5th edition uses, armor class increases instead of decreases. You have to roll a higher number than their armor class, adding your modifiers on a 20-sided dice to hit them. With this new system, it's a lot harder to just eyeball what somebody's wearing and know roughly what you need to do to hit them. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that it's a lot harder to eyeball whether you can take a fight or not, or if you need to approach a fight from a different angle. If you played through the original Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 and haven't touched any other rule set since, you'll find a lot of the new systems being very different. And for me, it was fun learning more and more about this new edition of the Dungeons and Dragons rule set, and I hope it will be for you as well. Fundamentally, I don't enjoy min-max guides, and I feel that they ruin the experience of discovery and role-playing. However, I think teaching the tools of a game will allow you, the player, to take those tools and come up with your own ingenious ways to utilize them in a variety of situations of your choosing. So this video should serve to teach you the systems at play and without telling you explicitly how to play your game. Dungeons & Dragons is best served as a role-playing experience first and foremost. I want to go over the very first system you will encounter when you load your game up for the first time. Character creation.
Who are you?
On the first screen of the character creation, you'll get to decide whether you're going to make your own custom character or select from one of the predetermined characters that Larian has made, as well as choose your name and your character background. Each of these backgrounds will give you proficiency to one of your many skill checks, like persuasion or religion. Being proficient in a skill gives you a +1 to that skill check, giving you a 5% increased success to that check. The next screen is where you choose your race, again with their own proficiencies and bonuses, like Drow being proficient with hand crossbows, short swords, and rapiers. Some classes don't inherently have that proficiency, so they cannot make as much use of using a short sword as a Drow of the same class can. After selecting a race, you then customize how they look. Next is the real big choice, picking your class. What do you want to play? A cleric who heals allies, provides buffs, and uses divine magic to blow up their foes? A paladin that smites evil? A fighter that can use any weapon effectively? Or a wizard that rains fireballs on groups of enemies? Now that you've selected which class you want to play, you now get to select the skills that your character will be proficient in. These are all tied to your class, as well as your race and your background. Now the next screen is really the screen that this whole video is about. This is the screen that determines so much about how your character will play and feel within the confines of your class, and thus we are going to go into so much more detail about the ability score screen. My favorite way to play Dungeons & Dragons is rolling all of your ability scores once and selecting where to place each of those scores. No re-rolling. Sometimes you'll have a godlike character that smashes every foe without ever flinching, and other times you'll have a very weak character that has to use rather different methods to overcome challenges, which oftentimes creates very interesting gameplay loops for every character you roll. I personally have always preferred the average Joe character, but in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, the way ability scores were iterated, it put more emphasis on the combat stats, and in turn promoted min-maxing. In Baldur's Gate 3, Larian has gone with a point buy system, where you won't be rolling for ability scores. This system sets all of your ability scores before racial modifiers to 8, with 27 points to allocate up to a maximum of 7 points into any one ability score. Larian has done away with racial modifiers, instead opting for more diversity in character creation by giving every race the ability to choose which ability score will receive the +2 and +1 modifier, which I personally don't like, but that's a story for another time. So every ability score has a max score of 15. Now with a modifier, one of those +2s or +1s, you can get a max score in one ability score of 17. Now you might be asking, where should I place all my ability scores if I want to play, say, a fighter? My answer? anywhere you would like. Every ability score is important, some more than others, depending on your class and style of play you are hoping to achieve. For example, I like to be a smooth talker, a negotiator of sorts, that can weasel his way out of a number of situations using words. And just about every playthrough, I've had high charisma on every and any class that I have ever played. So let's break down each of these ability scores. There are a total of 6 ability scores you can pick from: Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma. The first 3 ability scores are based on the physicality of your character, while the latter 3 are focused on more of the intangibles of your character, like their ability to think, speak, or simply use common sense. Strength, well, it's strength. How strong is your character? This governs a lot of strength-based feats, like whether you are strong enough to lift a heavy object and move it, how far you can throw an object, how far you can jump, how far you can push someone, how much weight you can carry in your bags, how hard you can hit someone, and how often you hit someone with strength-based melee weapons. It affects the athletic skill check. Anything that requires you to roll an athletic skill check will have your strength score modifier applied to it. For example, if you have 16 strength and you need to make an athletics roll, you will roll a d20, and whatever it lands on, add the +3 modifier to that roll. But if you have a strength score of less than 10, you will add a negative number to that roll. Dexterity is the character's hand-eye coordination. This is answering the question of how nimble is your character. Their ability to move silently, steal, pick locks, disarm traps, misdirection, general hand movements, dodge and weave, and to land dexterity-based attacks on opponents, which is governed by ranged weapons and melee weapons that have the finesse trait. In combat, dexterity increases your armor modifier, making you harder to hit and allowing you to avoid attacks. As for the skill proficiencies, acrobatics is your ability to stay on your feet, like your resistance to being shoved. Sleight of hand is your ability to steal, pick locks, and disarm traps, and serves in conversation for things like physical misdirection, throwing a rock to make a noise somewhere else without someone noticing you do it, or stealing a key and placing it on someone else to frame them. And stealth is staying hidden. That's really it. Constitution affects your maximum hit points and your ability to stay healthy. Anything that would cause your character's physical health to drop uses a constitution roll to decide if you remain healthy or die from various ailments. Drink too much tequila? Roll constitution. Get incapacitated by an enemy? Roll constitution to see if you stabilize. Are you on a brisk walk during a midsummer afternoon and only have milk to quench your thirst?
It's so damn hot. Milk was a bad choice.
Roll Constitution to see if you get sick. Now the next 3 ability scores dive in deeper, functioning in a multitude of different aspects of your character, like your ability to cast spells, the potency of spells, turn undead, use logic, identify your surroundings or objects, understand the world around you and the creatures that inhabit it, and different aspects of the many conversations your character will have with the NPCs across the Sword Coast. Intelligence governs your intelligence-based spellcasting abilities, essentially wizard spells. It also affects your ability to identify and interact with the arcane, as a wizard's function is to cast spells by interacting with the weave. With high intelligence, your character will also have the ability to recall historical events, understand the nature of the universe.
Hey Vsauce, Michael here. This appears blue. This appears yellow, and this appears green.
Recognize religion, artifacts, scripture, and the differences between the many deities of the Forgotten Realms. While you would think that religion would be part of the next ability score as it governs cleric spells, it sits firmly in the intelligence slot as more of the theologist standpoint, or the study of religion rather than a partaker of the practice. And finally, they will also have a better grasp on deduction, or the powers of deduction, being able to effectively investigate their surroundings and deduce what the information gathered could be. Detective work, really. Hey, look at all this blood. Somebody was bleeding here. Call me Sherlock Holmes. Now, wisdom is your spidey senses. This is the ability to recognize deception, like small details in the way people move during a conversation, like if they're shifting slightly in anticipation, or if they won't make eye contact with you, and typical things that people notice in body language. This also governs your ability for common sense. A mage with high intelligence and low wisdom would be what we refer to as book smart. A high wisdom character would have an easier time recognizing lies in conversations, discovering traps and secrets, having a superior affinity with animals, and recognizing their behaviors. They would also have the ability to identify ailments, then create medicine and apply it. And finally, when you tie all these things together, the survival skill. Are you an orphan who survived on the streets of Baldur's Gate? Or do you have the uncanny ability to live under the night sky in the wilderness with Bear Grylls drinking each other's pee?
Like that. A large proportion of that is going to be stinking thick brown color.
Oh, and as mentioned before, wisdom is the prime ability score for divination-based spells, whether from nature or from a place of worship. Again, religion isn't attached to the wisdom ability score because you don't need to know about the other various religions around the world to be a good practitioner of your own religion. In real life, there are a great many religious people who couldn't tell you a lick about other religions except for their own faith. That should be making sense now. Now for my favorite ability score, let's talk about charisma. While having various combat usages depending on your chosen class, its main usage is your ability to speak with others, to converse with people around you. It also affects your character's natural beauty or how people perceive your character, and that helps with your ability to lead. A lot of times you see leaders having a high charisma score. High charisma scores make you the life of every party, the chosen wordsmith. People trust you just a little bit more, to offer you better prices on goods and services, to buy into your lies, and to follow a path you told them to follow, even if it was bullshit. You get bonuses on persuasion checks, deception checks, performance checks, and intimidation checks, and boy does that get fun in this game. The sheer number of outcomes and conversations from this ability score feels nearly infinite. As someone who plays a traditional Loathsworn Drow, this is the prime ability for my evil double-crossing ways. With high charisma, you too can have all the bravado of Jaraxxle with the ability to cause chaos. Or you could just be a high school girl and spread rumors about your best friend behind her back. But like, she totally wasn't into John until I totally said I was like into John. Then she totally texted him and totally became a slut for the whole football team. Like, OMG, she sucked off Bradley behind the dumpster at Walmart and murdered 3 cats. Oh, the other benefits of charisma? Yeah, it helps with spellcasting for sorcerers, as their connection to the weave is innate. Warlocks because they deal with devils. Bards because songs and words. Some paladin spells like smite. And a cleric's ability to turn undead. Now, I don't mean that they literally just like turn it into the undead, but what turn undead simply means is that you turn them away from you in some form. Whether undead creatures literally die, flee, or join you to fight on your side. It's a command power. You're using the words of your deity to literally command the undead to go away. Oof, that's a lot. Never know how much you actually know until you start typing up a script. Anyways, this is where the fun of D&D comes into play, because all of those sound useful for every character. Remember, D&D is typically a party-based game, and your party will, or should, overcome any of the shortcomings you might have with your own character. What makes your character, well, your character, is what you choose to excel in, and what you choose to sacrifice for those boons. This is where your role-playing comes into play. Also, remember that you get to increase an ability score by 1 point at level 4, 8, and 12, and there are various methods to increase scores through magical or divine means, whether permanently or temporary. And on the other side of the token, a 5 intelligence character can still successfully roll a history check and start rambling off the entire timeline of the entire American Revolutionary War, however unlikely it would be. Again, this is just your base character. It's all up from here, man. It's all up from here. Now I want to leave you with some example starting characters that I've played, like a Dexterity Drow Fighter Duelist with high charisma. I couldn't lift fuck all up or hold much in my bags and had dick for hit points, but I could manipulate many situations while having increased fighting prowess by using a single finesse weapon like the rapier and nothing in my offhand. In my most current playthrough, I'm playing a 17 Dexterity Drow Cleric of Loth that uses a ranged weapon, while again having moderate charisma and high wisdom, but with negatives to strength and constitution. This allows me to be able to pick locks and disarm traps without the use of a rogue, and sneak into advantageous positions or get 2 sneak attacks off because I remained hidden. There's so many ways to play through this game, and I haven't really found a class and build that wasn't useful in some way. A high strength, high charisma sorcerer can hit big damage numbers from spells and create openings through conversation, and when shit hits the fan and you end up in melee combat with someone, your ability to land push to create distance, or your ability to leap to a safe and advantageous location creates so many options in combat. Also, pretty fun to hit somebody with a staff. Now the final screen is creating a person that you dream of. I won't go into details about it because this character has story implications that would be a major spoiler for those that didn't play through early access. For the sake of brevity, I am going to end this video here. Be on the lookout for my next video about Baldur's Gate 3. Thug out.
Let's go ahead and take a step back. Make them have to run further to get to us. Oh, he stole her. Wow, I've never seen that. He actually went and took her weapon from her corpse. We're going to end up shooting that when they get close to it. Or not. Fuck. Ah, it worked. That didn't work.